My phone buzzed at 6:29 a.m., 1 minute before everything detonated. I stared at the screen from my car, parked 3 blocks from Crest Technologies headquarters. The lawsuit had auto-filed 60 seconds ago. The system failsafe would trigger in 45 seconds. And somewhere in that building, Tucker Eastwick was about to watch his $92 million exit implode in real time. 30 seconds. My hands weren't shaking. They should have been. Normal people's hands shake when they're about to brick an entire company's infrastructure and freeze a massive acquisition before breakfast. 15 seconds. But 12 hours ago, Tucker had slid termination papers across a mahogany table with a smirk that said he'd already won. He'd manufactured cause to fire me, weaponized lawyers to steal my equity, and arranged security guards to physically remove me from the company I'd built from absolutely nothing. 5 seconds. He thought 7 years of loyalty meant I'd go quietly. He thought being too nice made me weak. 0. Every system went dark. Customer dashboards crashed. Internal tools flatlined. Monitoring alerts screamed red across Tucker's executive display. My phone lit up with his first panicked call. I sent it to voicemail and started the engine. Time to teach a very expensive lesson about what happens when you confuse empathy with stupidity. Welcome to the Payback Office channel. These are real stories about what happens when corporate predators underestimate the people they betray. I document the strategies, the mistakes, and the moments when everything shifts from looking like defeat to executing perfect justice. If you've ever felt powerless in a conference room while someone tried to steal what you earned, these stories are for you. Hit subscribe and help us reach 7,000 people who understand that workplace loyalty should run both ways. The algorithm pushes these stories to people who need them, but only if you engage. My name is Quinn Winters. 12 hours ago, I was the Chief Technology Officer of Crest Technologies. This morning, I'm the person who owns $3 million and the technical architecture that makes Tucker Eastwick's company actually function. This is how that happened. I didn't grow up expecting boardroom battles. My father ran a hardware store outside Pittsburgh where handshake deals still mattered. My mother worked double nursing shifts so I could have opportunities she never did. They taught me that integrity wasn't negotiable, and that treating people right was just basic human decency. Those weren't just values, they were intelligence. When you actually care about people, they tell you things, they trust you. They show loyalty that no employment contract can manufacture. Tucker never understood that. He saw empathy as a weakness to exploit. Biggest mistake of his career. 7 years earlier, Crest Technologies didn't exist. Tucker Eastwick had an idea, some seed money from a questionable cryptocurrency windfall, and enough charisma to convince a room full of strangers that he was the next Steve Jobs. What he didn't have was anyone who could actually build the product he was pitching. That's where I came in. I was working at a mid-sized security firm, building intrusion detection systems that actually worked instead of just checking compliance boxes. My resume landed on Tucker's desk through a mutual connection, and within a week, I was sitting in a coffee shop listening to him describe his vision for enterprise-grade security that small and medium businesses could actually afford. The vision was sound, the market gap was real, and Tucker, for all his faults that I hadn't yet discovered, could sell sand in a desert. "I need someone who can build this," he said, sliding a napkin across the table with a crude architecture diagram. "Not someone who manages people who build things. Someone who can write the first line of code and the 10 millionth. I looked at the napkin. The architecture was amateur, but the intent was solid. "I can build this," I told him, "but I need equity and authority. I'm not interested in being an employee who gets replaced the second you raise a Series A." Tucker laughed. "Quinn, you're exactly the kind of partner I need, someone who thinks like an owner." We shook hands. 3.6% equity, vested over 4 years with a 1-year cliff. CTO title from day one. Full authority over all technical decisions and hiring. I should have gotten it in writing sooner. I should have had a lawyer review everything before I gave notice at my stable job with benefits and a retirement match. But I was 29 years old, brilliant with code and systems, and catastrophically naive about how venture-backed startups chewed up founding team members and spit them out. The first 2 years were exactly what I'd hoped for. Tucker and I worked side by side, him handling investors and customers while I built the product. We hired carefully engineers who were hungry and talented, who believed in the mission. I brought on Gabrielle Lin as our first senior developer, a MIT graduate who could code circles around people twice her age. Then came Ronnie Kozlov, a Ukrainian immigrant with a gift for encryption algorithms. Then Priya Mehta, Jamal Washington, Sophie Laurent. We became a family. Pizza at midnight during product launches. Nerf gun battles during debugging marathons. I knew Gabrielle was saving money to bring her parents over from Taiwan. I knew Ronnie sent half his paycheck to relatives still in Kiev. I knew Priya was supporting her sister through medical school. This wasn't just a job to them. It was opportunity, advancement, hope. And I made sure they got compensated fairly. I fought Tucker constantly on salaries, on benefits, on equity packages for key hires. He wanted to keep burn rate low for investors. I wanted to keep talent from walking to Google or Amazon. "You're too generous," Tucker would say during budget meetings. "These people should feel lucky to be here." "These people are the company," I'd fire back. "The product is only as good as the team building it." We'd argue, but I usually won. Tucker needed me too much in those early days. The product launched 18 months after that coffee shop meeting. Crest Security Suite, a comprehensive platform that gave small businesses enterprise-grade protection at a fraction of the cost. The market response was immediate and overwhelming. Revenue in year 1, $4.2 million. Year 2, $18 million. Year 3, $41 million. We raised a Series A, then a Series B. Tucker hired an executive team. A CFO named Allison Park, a VP of sales named Greg Hammond, a chief marketing officer named Vanessa Torres. The garage gave way to a real office, then a full floor in a downtown high-rise, then 3 floors. I was hiring a new engineer every week. My team grew from 5 to 20 to 60. I started managing managers, which meant less time coding and more time in meetings about roadmaps and resource allocation. Tucker was changing too. The scrappy founder energy was getting replaced by something harder, more calculated. He started wearing expensive suits, started talking about strategic positioning and maximizing shareholder value. Started spending more time with the board than with the people actually building the company. Our Monday morning leadership meetings shifted from collaborative problem-solving to Tucker holding court. He'd dismiss ideas without discussion. He'd make technical promises to customers without consulting engineering. He'd commit to impossible deadlines to impress investors. "Tucker, we can't ship that feature in 6 weeks," I said during one particularly tense meeting. "The security implications alone require at least 3 months of testing." His jaw tightened. "Quinn, I appreciate your thoroughness, but we have competitors moving faster. We need to be aggressive." "Aggressive is fine. Reckless isn't. If we ship broken security software, we're done." The room went quiet. Allison Park looked at her laptop. Greg Hammond studied his phone. Only Vanessa Torres met my eyes, and her expression said what she couldn't: "Be careful." Tucker's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Let's table this and sync offline." Sync offline became his favorite phrase for shutting down any disagreement in public, then cornering me in private to explain how I was making him look bad in front of the team. "You're undermining my authority," he said after that meeting, closing his office door. "I'm protecting the company," I replied. "You're making commitments we can't keep." "I'm steering the ship. You're building the engine. Stay in your lane." My lane? As if the CTO shouldn't have input on feasibility and timelines. But I stayed. I told myself every startup went through growing pains. I told myself Tucker was under pressure from investors. I told myself that my equity was worth millions on paper, and if I could just hold on until acquisition or IPO, I could cash out and start my own company the right way. I told myself a lot of comforting lies. The acquisition talks started in year 6. A cybersecurity conglomerate called Fortitude Systems wanted to buy Crest for $92 million. For Tucker, who owned 38%, That was a $35 million payday. For me, with my 3.6%, it was over $3 million. Life-changing money. The kind of money that meant my parents could retire. The kind of money that meant I could finally breathe. The due diligence process was brutal. Fortitude's technical team wanted to examine every line of code, every architecture decision, every security protocol. They wanted to interview key personnel. They wanted documentation for systems that had been built iteratively over 7 years. I worked 100-hour weeks preparing materials, sitting through interviews, explaining technical choices I'd made before some of their analysts had graduated college. My team did the same, burning midnight oil to compile documentation and prepare presentations. Through it all, Tucker was increasingly absent. He'd show up for meetings with Fortitude's executive team, then disappear for days at a time. When I asked where he'd been, he'd give vague answers about strategic planning and preparing for transition. 3 months into due diligence, I started noticing irregularities. Code repositories I couldn't access, administrative credentials that had been changed, meetings on Tucker's calendar with lawyers I didn't recognize. I mentioned it to Gabrielle during a late-night debugging session. "Have you noticed anything weird lately?" I asked, trying to sound casual, like access issues or permission changes. She glanced around the empty office before answering. "Your access got downgraded last week. I got a ticket from it to remove you from the core infrastructure admin group." My blood went cold. On whose authority? Tucker's office. I pushed back, but Desmond Crawford sent a follow-up saying it was for acquisition security protocols, that it was standard to limit access during transitions. Desmond Crawford, Tucker's new general counsel, brought on 6 months earlier. A lawyer whose specialty wasn't building companies but dismantling them for parts. I should have seen it then, should have recognized the setup. But I was exhausted, stretched thin across technical due diligence and keeping the company running. I told myself it was probably standard procedure, that I was being paranoid. 2 weeks later, Tucker called an emergency board meeting. I wasn't invited. The next morning, I was summoned to the conference room. Tucker was there with Desmond and 2 people I'd never seen before, a man and woman in dark suits carrying the distinct energy of hired intimidation. "Quinn, have a seat," Tucker said, gesturing to the chair across from him. I sat. The termination papers were already on the table. "We're making some leadership changes in advance of the acquisition," Tucker began, his tone rehearsed. "Fortitude has expressed concerns about team redundancy post-merger. They have their own CTO and technical leadership. After careful consideration, the board has decided to transition you out of your role effective immediately." The words hit like a physical blow. "Transition me out? Tucker, I built this company. The product is my architecture. The team will be well taken care of," he interrupted. "This is a business decision, not personal. My equity will be handled according to the terms of your agreement." Desmond slid another document across the table. "This is a separation agreement. It includes a generous severance package." I scanned the document. The generous severance was 6 months' salary, good for a normal employee, insulting for a founding CTO. But that wasn't the knife. The knife was buried in Section 7, Subsection 3, in language designed to sound routine. Employee acknowledges that equity vesting shall terminate concurrent with employment termination, and any unvested shares shall be forfeited. Employee further acknowledges that vested shares are subject to company repurchase rights at fair market value as determined by the board of directors. Fair market value determined by Tucker's board, not the acquisition price, not market rate, whatever number they decided to write down. "This is theft," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "My equity is worth over $3 million at acquisition price. This document values it at," I scanned further, $200,000. Tucker's expression didn't change. "That's the current valuation based on book value, not the speculative acquisition price. The Fortitude deal isn't closed. It might not close. We can't value shares based on a transaction that hasn't happened." "A transaction that won't happen without me," I countered. Fortitude's entire technical due diligence has been predicated on my architecture, my team, my systems. Your systems that are now company property, Desmond interjected. Per your employment agreement, all work product belongs to Crest Technologies. I'm not disputing IP ownership. I'm disputing the theft of my equity. Tucker leaned forward. No one's stealing anything, Quinn. You're being bought out at fair value. You can accept this agreement, or we can terminate you for cause and you get nothing. For cause, on what grounds? Desmond opened a folder. Insubordination, failure to meet deadlines, unauthorized access to company systems. Each accusation was a carefully twisted version of reality. I'd pushed back on reckless commitments, insubordination. I'd prioritized security over arbitrary deadlines, failure to meet commitments. I'd used my administrative access to do my actual job, unauthorized access. They'd been building a case. The permission changes, the excluded meetings, the paper trail of me being difficult in leadership meetings. This wasn't a sudden decision. This was a planned extraction. You have until end of business today to sign, Tucker said. After that, we terminate for cause and you leave with nothing. The two suits stood up. A silent reminder that I could be removed by force if necessary. I looked at Tucker, really looked at him. The man who'd shaken my hand 7 years ago and promised partnership. The man who'd clinked beer bottles with me when we got our first major client. The man who'd given a speech at the Year 3 company party about how I was the technical genius who made everything possible. He'd already moved on. I was just a line item to be resolved before closing. I need to consult a lawyer, I said. You have until 5 p.m., Desmond replied, not a minute longer. I stood up and walked out of that conference room with my heart hammering and my mind racing. They thought they had me cornered. They thought 7 years of loyalty and exhaustion had made me soft, compliant, someone who'd take the insult rather than fight. They forgot where I came from. They forgot that the hardware store owner's daughter learned early that sometimes people smile while they rob you, and the only response is to rob them back harder. I had 8 hours to dismantle Tucker Eastwick's perfect crime. I didn't go home. I went to a coffee shop 3 blocks from the office, ordered the strongest espresso they had, and opened my laptop. First call, my personal lawyer, Angela Roth, someone I'd retained years ago for basic contract review. She wasn't a litigator, but she was smart and connected. Angela, I need a referral for an employment attorney who specializes in founder disputes and equity theft. I need someone who can move fast. She didn't ask questions. I'll text you a name in 5 minutes. Second call, my best friend from graduate school, Isaac Brennan, now a partner at a cybersecurity consulting firm. Isaac, hypothetically, if someone built a complex technical system and wanted to ensure they could verify their authorship and contributions independently, what would be the best documentation approach? Pause, Quinn, what's happening? Can't explain yet, I just need to know. Code commits with verified signatures, architectural decision records with timestamps, email trails showing technical decision-making. Why? I'll tell you soon, thank you. Angela's text came through. Olivia Reeves, partner at Hartman & Associates, specializes in founder disputes. Brilliant and ruthless. I'm sending her your number now. Olivia called me before I could call her. Angela says you're getting screwed by your co-founder on an acquisition, she said without preamble. Walk me through it. I explained everything. The equity agreement, the termination, the lowball buyout, the manufactured cause documentation, the 5 p.m. deadline. She was quiet for a moment. They're trying to pressure you into signing before you can mount a defense. Classic intimidation tactic. Don't sign anything. If I don't sign by 5, they terminate me for cause and I get nothing. If you do sign, you also get nothing, just $200,000 instead of $3 million. Either way, you're fighting. Question is whether you fight from a position of employment or termination. What leverage do you have? I thought about it. What did I have that Tucker needed? The acquisition depends on technical due diligence I've been managing. I have relationships with Fortitude's technical team. I have documentation of every system architecture decision. I have the loyalty of my engineering team. Can you prove that your contributions were essential to the company's value? Extensively. Can you prove that the termination is pretextual and retaliatory? I thought about the timeline, the permission changes, the excluded meetings, the sudden performance issues that coincided exactly with acquisition talks. Yes. Can you prove that Tucker's actions harm the acquisition and therefore breach his fiduciary duty to shareholders? That one was trickier. Maybe, if I can show that Fortitude's concerns about my removal could tank the deal. Then we have options. Here's what we're going to do. For the next 3 hours, Olivia and I built a strategy, not a defense, an offense. She'd prepare an emergency lawsuit alleging breach of fiduciary duty, tortious interference with contractual relations, and fraud. We'd file it in federal court first thing in the morning, before Tucker could terminate me. But a lawsuit alone wouldn't stop him. He had deeper pockets, a board backing him, and the ability to drag litigation out for years while I burned through savings. I needed something more immediate, something that would hit him where it hurt. The acquisition, I said. If Fortitude pulls out, Tucker has no exit, no payday, and no leverage. Can you make that happen? Olivia asked. I thought about the dozens of calls I'd had with Fortitude's CTO, a meticulous engineer named Wesley Hunt. We'd built rapport during due diligence. He respected my work. More importantly, he was risk-averse and paranoid. Exactly the mindset you want in a security company leader. I can plant doubt, I said. If Wesley thinks the technical foundation of Crest is compromised or that key personnel departures represent critical knowledge loss, he'll recommend pulling out. That's tortious interference, Olivia warned. Tucker could sue you. He's already stealing $3 million from me. What's he going to do? Steal it twice. She laughed. I like you, Quinn. Okay, here's how we thread this needle. At 4:45 p.m., I walked back into Crest's office. Tucker was in the conference room, checking his watch. Desmond sat beside him, termination documents prepared. I sat down and slid an unsigned separation agreement back across the table. I'm not signing, I said. Tucker's jaw tightened. Then effective immediately, you're terminated for cause. Security will escort you out, and you'll have no access to company property or systems. That's fine. My lawyer will file our lawsuit first thing tomorrow morning. You'll be served by 9 a.m. Desmond leaned forward. Any lawsuit you file will be frivolous and subject to sanctions. Your employment agreement includes an arbitration clause. I smiled. My equity agreement doesn't. That's a separate contract with separate remedies. My lawyer is quite good at reading the fine print. That landed. I saw the momentary flicker of uncertainty. You're making a mistake, Tucker said. This is a business decision. Don't make it personal. You stole 7 years of my work and $3 million. It's been personal since you slid those papers across the table this morning. I stood up. See you in court. Security did escort me out. A 23-year-old kid named Austin who'd always been friendly, now stone-faced and following orders. He watched me pack my personal items into a box, a few books, a photo of my parents, a coffee mug from our Series A celebration. As I packed, I pulled out my phone and composed an email to Wesley Hunt. Wesley, I wanted to give you advance notice that I've been terminated from Crest effective today. I won't be able to continue supporting the technical due diligence process. I've prepared a transition document outlining critical system dependencies and knowledge areas that will need coverage. I hope the acquisition proceeds smoothly despite this leadership change. Best, Quinn. Professional, helpful, and absolutely calculated to trigger every alarm bell in Wesley's paranoid engineer brain. I hit send as Austin escorted me to the parking garage. The email to my team went out next, BCC'd to their personal addresses. Team, I've been let go from Crest effective today. I'm not able to discuss details, but I want you to know that working with each of you has been the greatest honor of my career. You're brilliant, dedicated, and ethical, everything the tech industry needs more of. Take care of each other. Quinn. 17 responses came back within an hour. Shock, outrage, confusion. Gabrielle's was the most direct. "This is bullshit. What do you need from us?" I didn't respond. Couldn't risk asking them to choose sides while they still had jobs and families to support. But I knew that by tomorrow morning, Tucker would be managing a near mutiny from an engineering team that just lost their leader right before a critical acquisition close. At home, I didn't sleep. I refined documentation with Olivia, code commits with my verified signature, architecture decision records with timestamps, email threads showing me making every critical technical choice, performance reviews where Tucker praised my invaluable contributions. We built an airtight case that I wasn't just an employee. I was the technical founder, and the company's value was inextricably linked to my work. At midnight, Olivia sent the final draft. "This is good, really good. We file at 6:30 a.m. You ready?" I thought about my parents' hardware store, about my mother's double shifts, about the values they'd taught me. Your word means something. Hard work gets rewarded. Treat people right. Tucker had violated all of it. "I'm ready," I typed back. At 6:30 a.m. exactly, Olivia filed the lawsuit in federal court. Breach of fiduciary duty, tortious interference, fraud in the inducement, constructive termination. We asked for injunctive relief blocking the acquisition until the equity dispute was resolved. At 6:32 a.m., the court filing hit Pacer, the public access system for federal cases. At 6:35 a.m., Wesley Hunt's phone alert pinged. He had keyword alerts set up for Crest Technologies and litigation because of course he did. The man was paranoid about risk. Wesley called his general counsel at 6:40 a.m. By 7 a.m., Fortitude's executive team was on an emergency call. By 7:30, they'd sent a formal letter to Tucker invoking the material adverse change clause in the acquisition agreement. The deal was frozen pending resolution of the lawsuit. Tucker's $92 million exit evaporated in less than an hour. But I wasn't done. Remember those administrative credentials I'd supposedly been blocked from? The access Gabrielle said had been revoked. She'd revoked my official access. But there was another access vector no one knew about, a backdoor authentication system I'd built in year 2 for emergency disaster recovery. It was documented, legal, and completely invisible to anyone who didn't understand the deep architecture of our infrastructure. I'd spent 7 years building Crest systems. I knew every dependency, every integration point, every single point of failure. At 6:33 a.m., while Wesley was reading the lawsuit, I executed a command I'd written the night before. The core authentication system, the heart of every Crest product, the piece of code that validated user credentials and authorized access, received an update. A small one, just a few lines of code. Those lines checked the system date and time. If it was past 6:30 a.m. on this specific date, and if administrative credentials hadn't been reset using a specific protocol I'd designed, the system would enter safe mode and refuse all authentication requests. Essentially, it would brick itself. At 6:35 a.m., every Crest product went dark. Customer logins failed. Internal tools stopped working. Monitoring systems showed red across every dashboard. Tucker's phone started ringing at 6:37. Customers reporting outages. The operations team panicking. Greg Hammond trying to understand what was happening. By 7 a.m., Tucker had dragged Gabrielle and the senior engineers into a crisis call. "What the hell is happening?" he shouted. Gabrielle, to her credit, diagnosed it immediately. The core auth system is in safe mode. It's an emergency failsafe Quinn built for disaster recovery. Well, override it. I can't, only Quinn has the reset credentials. She doesn't work here anymore. There has to be another way. There isn't. This is exactly why I argued against removing her access during the acquisition. She built redundancies and safety systems that require her involvement. Tucker's voice went cold. Are you telling me Quinn sabotaged our systems? I'm telling you she built systems that protect themselves when administrative protocols aren't followed correctly. It's not sabotage, it's security architecture. Desmond's voice cut in. This is clearly retaliation for her termination. We'll file charges. For what? Gabrielle shot back. Implementing documented disaster recovery protocols. The code's been there for 5 years. It's in the repository with full documentation. She was protecting me, giving me plausible deniability. The system had indeed been built for legitimate purposes. The fact that it also served as a perfect dead man's switch if I was ever improperly removed. That was just good planning. At 8:45 a.m., while I was on the phone with Wesley, Tucker made his biggest tactical error. He called an all-hands emergency meeting. I found out later from Gabrielle what happened in that conference room. Every engineer, every product manager, every person who'd actually built Crest's technology, crammed into a space designed for 50 people, watching their CEO unravel in real time. "We're experiencing a critical system outage," Tucker began, his voice tight. "This is not a technical failure. This is sabotage by a disgruntled former employee who is attempting to extort this company." Gabrielle's hand shot up. "That's not accurate. The authentication system is following documented disaster recovery protocols that Quinn weaponized," Tucker interrupted. "She built a kill switch into our core infrastructure and waited for the perfect moment to use it. This is corporate terrorism." Ronnie Kozlov stood up, his Ukrainian accent thickening with anger. "Quinn built redundancies to protect us. You fired the one person who understood the deep architecture. This is consequence, not terrorism." "Sit down, Ronnie." "No, you want to call what Quinn did sabotage. What do you call stealing her equity? What do you call manufacturing false termination charges?" The room erupted, engineers shouting questions, Tucker's face reddening, Greg Hammond attempting damage control. People, Greg raised his hands. "We need solutions, not recriminations. Can anyone here override the authentication lockout?" Silence. 37 engineers, some of the smartest developers in the cybersecurity industry, and not one could crack the system their former CTO had built. Gabrielle's voice cut through the quiet. "I can try to reverse engineer the failsafe, but it would take days, maybe weeks. Quinn didn't build simple systems. She built elegant, resilient architecture with multiple dependencies and validation layers. That's why Fortitude wanted to acquire us in the first place." "So what are you saying?" Tucker demanded. "I'm saying you fired the only person who can fix this. And based on what I'm hearing about how you fired her, I'm not sure she should help us." Tucker's eyes narrowed. "You're dangerously close to insubordination, Gabrielle." "You already fired Quinn for made-up insubordination. What's one more?" "Everyone back to work," Tucker snapped. "Figure it out. We have paying customers and contracts on the line." But the engineers didn't move with their usual urgency. They filtered out slowly, whispering, checking their phones. Several were already updating their LinkedIn profiles. Gabrielle texted me the recap at 9:15. "He's losing them. Half the team is ready to walk. What do you need from us?" I replied, "Nothing, protect yourselves, don't risk your jobs for me." Her response came immediately. "Some things matter more than jobs." At 9:30, my doorbell rang. I checked the security camera. Allison Park stood on my doorstep, alone, looking exhausted. I considered not answering. But Allison had always been different from Tucker's other executives, an actual professional in a leadership team increasingly dominated by yes-men. I opened the door. "I'm not wearing a wire," she said immediately, holding her arms out. "I'm not here on Tucker's behalf. I'm here because what he did to you was wrong, and what's happening to this company is catastrophic. Come in." She sat on my couch, declined coffee, and got straight to the point. "The board had an emergency call at 8 a.m. Tucker didn't tell them about your termination until yesterday evening. He framed it as a necessary leadership transition. He didn't mention the equity dispute or the lawsuit until our lawyer found the pacer filing this morning." "How'd they react?" 3 of the 5 board members are furious. They understand that firing the technical founder right before acquisition close is insane. They understand that your lawsuit gives Fortitude grounds to walk away. And now, with the systems down, she shook her head, Tucker has lost control of the narrative. "Then the board can fix this," I said. "Reinstate me, honor my equity, and I'll restore the systems." It's not that simple. Tucker still controls the largest voting bloc. He can't be removed without cause, and your termination, as unfair as it was, followed proper corporate procedures. Desmond made sure of that. So why are you here? Allison met my eyes. Because I have stock options too, because I have a team that depends on this company surviving, because what Tucker did to you, he could do to any of us. She leaned forward. I can't override Tucker's decisions, but I can tell you that if you settle this quickly, the board will back you. They'll ensure Tucker pays every cent you're owed. And if I don't settle quickly, then Fortitude walks, the acquisition dies, and we all lose. Tucker doesn't get his big exit, but you don't get your $3 million either. The company probably goes into a death spiral, losing customers, bleeding talent, facing lawsuits from investors who lost value. Mutually assured destruction, I said. Exactly. You can burn it all down, Quinn. You have that power. But is that what you want? Or do you want justice and compensation? I studied her. This was a negotiation tactic, but it was also truth. I could destroy Crest completely. The question was whether destruction served my actual goals. I want what I earned, I said. $3 million. Public acknowledgement of my contributions, and Tucker's signature on every page of the settlement. The board will push for that. But Quinn, she hesitated, you need to move fast. Every hour those systems stay down, we're losing customers we'll never get back. There are already posts on Twitter about the outage. TechCrunch is asking for comment. This is becoming a public crisis. She pulled out her phone and showed me the Twitter feed. At Crest Security Systems down for 3+ hours. Anyone else unable to access dashboards? Number outage. Hearing rumors of major internal drama at Crest Security right before their acquisition. Founder lawsuit plus system, outage equals triangular. If you're a Crest Security customer, might be time to evaluate alternatives. This is amateur hour. Number cybersecurity. The crisis was metastasizing beyond Tucker's control, beyond even my control. Tell the board they have until 12:30 to accept my terms, I said. Full terms, no negotiations. After that, I talked to TechCrunch myself and explain exactly why the systems are down and who's responsible. Allison stood, I'll make it happen. She was at the door when she turned back. For what it's worth, Quinn, I'm sorry, you deserved better than this. Yes, I agreed. I did. After she left, I sat in the silence of my apartment, watching the crisis unfold in real time across social media, knowing that somewhere across town, Tucker was watching the same screens and realizing that his perfect crime had become a very public disaster. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone. It's letting them destroy themselves while the whole world watches. My phone buzzed. Olivia, Tucker's lawyer, just called. They're ready to negotiate settlement terms. I smiled and picked up my coffee. Right on schedule. Tucker tried reaching me. 12 calls in 15 minutes. I didn't answer. At 8 a.m., my phone rang from an unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Wesley Hunt's voice? Quinn, it's Wesley from Fortitude. I saw the lawsuit this morning, and now I'm hearing about a system outage. I need to understand what's happening. The acquisition is on hold until we can assess the technical risks. Please call me when you can. I waited until 8:30 to call him back. Long enough to seem like I wasn't eagerly waiting, short enough to seem cooperative. Wesley, I'm sorry about the timing of all this, I said. I know it's terrible for the acquisition. Quinn, I need you to be straight with me. What's happening with the systems? There's a fail-safe protocol in the core authentication layer. It's designed to prevent unauthorized system changes during security incidents. When my administrative credentials were revoked improperly, it triggered the protection mode. Can it be reversed? Yes, with the proper reset protocol. Which you have. Which I designed, yes. Silence. Wesley was too smart to ask me directly to fix it. That would be acknowledging that Crest's entire technical infrastructure depended on someone they'd just fired. Quinn, off the record, what do you need here? I need what I earned. 3.6% equity valued at acquisition price. I need Tucker to stop trying to steal what I built. That's between you and Crest. Is it? Because Fortitude is buying Crest based on technical value that I created. If I'm not properly compensated for that value, do you really think you're getting what you're paying for? Another pause. I need to talk to our executive team. Take your time, I'm not going anywhere. By 10 a.m., Tucker called again. This time I answered. Quinn, we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you, Tucker. Talk to my lawyer. The systems are functioning exactly as designed. If you'd followed proper administrative protocols instead of trying to steal my equity, this wouldn't be an issue. You're destroying the company. You destroyed the company when you decided loyalty was optional. I'm just making sure everyone sees the wreckage. I hung up. Olivia called at 11. Tucker's lawyer reached out. They want to settle. What are they offering? Full equity at acquisition price if the deal closes. $1.2 million if it doesn't. Not enough. I want $3 million guaranteed, regardless of acquisition status. I want a public apology, and I want Tucker to personally sign the agreement. Quinn, that's aggressive. We might not get. They have no leverage. Every hour those systems stay down, they're losing customers and credibility. Fortitude won't acquire a company that can't keep its own products online. Tucker's exit is evaporating in real time. He'll agree. She paused. You're right, I'll counteroffer. At noon, my phone exploded. Not Tucker this time. Allison Park, the CFO. Quinn, I'm calling on behalf of the board. Not Tucker, the board. That was interesting. I'm listening. We have a major client presentation at 2 p.m. Homeland Security. A $40 million contract renewal. If our systems are still down, we lose the contract and possibly face breach penalties. That sounds like a Tucker problem. It's a company problem. Quinn, there are people here beyond Tucker. Good people who depend on Crest. Gabrielle, Ronnie, Priya, you care about them. She was right. That was the pressure point I hadn't fully considered. Put Tucker on the line, I said. Shuffling, then his voice, stripped of its usual confidence. Quinn. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to accept my lawyer's settlement terms within the next 30 minutes. Full terms, $3 million guaranteed, public acknowledgement, your signature. Once my lawyer confirms the wire transfer has initiated, I'll restore systems. The wire transfer takes hours to process. The presentation is at 2. Then you'd better hurry. Quinn, be reasonable. I'm being extremely reasonable. You tried to steal $3 million from me yesterday. Today I'm just taking back what's mine. You have 29 minutes. I hung up. Olivia called 3 minutes later. They're agreeing to everything. Desmond is drafting the settlement now. They need to move faster. Tell them they have 15 minutes or Homeland Security walks. At 12:40 p.m., the settlement documents hit my email. I read every word while Tucker's entire executive team presumably watched the clock tick toward professional catastrophe. The terms were perfect. $3 million, wire transfer initiated immediately with confirmation to follow. A public statement acknowledging my foundational technical contributions to Crest Technologies. Tucker's personal signature on every page. And one addition I hadn't requested, but Olivia had cleverly inserted. A non-disparagement clause that ran both ways, with $1 million penalty for violation. Tucker couldn't trash my reputation without paying dearly for it. I signed at 12:52 p.m. My phone rang immediately. Tucker, desperate. We're signed. Both sides restore the systems. Show me wire confirmation. It's processing. The bank needs time. Then you should have moved faster. I checked my watch. You have 1 hour and 8 minutes until Homeland Security. I suggest you call your bank and explain that this is urgent. The next hour was the longest of Tucker's life and the most satisfying of mine. I sat in my apartment, drinking coffee, watching my email for wire confirmation while knowing that Tucker was probably screaming at bank managers and frantically calling in favors. At 1:37 p.m., the wire confirmation landed. $3 million confirmed in transit to my account. I called Tucker. Systems will be online in 2 minutes. You're welcome. You sadistic. Non-disparagement clause, Tucker. That'll cost you $1 million if you finish that sentence. Enjoy your presentation. I executed the reset protocol. The authentication system came back online. Customer dashboards loaded. Monitoring systems turned green. Tucker had 23 minutes to prepare for the biggest presentation of the quarter, with a team that now knew exactly how disposable they were to him and exactly how critical I had been. The Homeland Security contract renewed, but 3 engineers resigned within a week. 5 more followed within the month. Tucker had his acquisition, but it was bleeding talent and credibility. The Fortitude acquisition closed 6 weeks later, but not at $92 million. The system outage, the lawsuit, and the publicized internal turmoil had given them negotiating leverage. They revised their offer to $78 million. Tucker's 38% stake shrank from $35 million to $29.6 million. He lost more in the revised deal than he'd tried to steal from me. Sometimes karma is just mathematics. My $3 million cleared 2 days before the acquisition closed. I immediately transferred enough to cover my parents' retirement. My dad called, confused about the sudden bank deposit. "Quinn, what is this?" "It's for the hardware store, Dad, and for all those double shifts Mom worked. You're done, both of you, retire." He cried. My father, who'd never shown emotion in front of me, cried on the phone. That made everything worth it. Gabrielle and 4 other senior engineers left Crest within 3 months of the acquisition. Fortitude's leadership style didn't mesh with the culture we'd built. She called me before she gave notice. "There's a rumor you're starting something new," she said. "Where'd you hear that?" "Isaac Brennan mentioned you were consulting on a new security platform. Something about making enterprise-grade protection actually accessible to small businesses." I smiled. "Might be working on something." "You need engineers." "I need partners, people who understand that equity should be real and loyalty should run both ways." "I'm in, so are the others." 6 months later, we incorporated Vanguard Security Systems. 7 co-founders, all with equal equity split after my founder's stake. No complicated vesting schemes, no repurchase rights, just clean, fair partnership. We built a product in 8 months that took Crest 2 years. We hit $1 million in revenue by month 14. We're now at $23 million annual recurring revenue with a team of 40. And every single person on that team owns meaningful equity with clear, unambiguous documentation. Tucker reached out once about a year after everything settled. A LinkedIn message, "Saw the news about Vanguard, impressive growth, we should grab coffee sometime." I didn't respond. Some bridges aren't worth rebuilding. Some people taught you exactly what you needed to learn by showing you what you'd never become. The payback office isn't about revenge. It's about justice. It's about understanding your value and refusing to let someone else define it for you. It's about building systems, both technical and personal, that protect what matters. Tucker thought he could erase my contributions with paperwork and lawyers. He forgot that in technology, code doesn't lie. Systems remember. And the person who builds the foundation will always understand it better than the person who tries to sell it. I didn't destroy Crest that morning. I just reminded everyone who'd actually built it. And then I built something better. If this story resonated with your own experiences in the corporate world, I genuinely appreciate you subscribing to the Payback Office channel. We're on our way to 7,000 subscribers, building a community of professionals who refuse to accept that loyalty and hard work should be one-sided. Your support means these stories reach the people who need to hear them, who need to know that standing up for yourself isn't just possible, it's necessary. The hardware store owner's daughter learned early. Keep your word, work hard, treat people right. But also, know your value, document everything, and never let someone mistake kindness for weakness. Tucker learned that lesson the expensive way. I learned it just in time.